Knights at the Round Table, a round-table discussion on speculative fiction books and film. Hi everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of Knights at the Round Table, season 5. Today we are discussing the 2017 action fantasy film from Netflix, Bright. And I'm sitting here at the table with Martin and with Eric, and I'm going to start with general impressions of the film. Eric?
I would classify this as a buddy cop movie combined with urban fantasy, which really should be exactly what I'm into. But overall, my description of the movie is meh. It had some brilliant moments and some really annoying ones.
Martin?
Let's call this flat out the best movie of 2017.
I'm gonna punch you! Oh my god!
It's not the best movie of 2017.
Not even the best Netflix movie of 2017.
But it was fun. And I really enjoyed it. I had a great time watching it. It's a good popcorn flick. It met my really low expectations.
Okay, so yeah, I had quite low expectations for this movie as well, but that's because I've been hearing a lot about it before I'd watched it. And I'm the same as Eric. It's meh. I mean, there were some really fun moments, and there were some moments that just made me go, what? Oh well, okay, fine, sure, whatever. And there were some moments where I went, okay, fine, sure, whatever, that's hilarious. But yeah, this is not a movie I would add to my personal collection. Yeah.
You don't have to. It's on Netflix for $10 a month. Don't worry about it.
You can still,
I think the entire idea of the movie, there were two things that I think were massively wrong with it. It started too early.
In the story?
In the story. And it took itself too seriously. Because when it started making fun of itself, or doing the buddy cop comedy, that's where it really shined. Like, check your holes. Only the ones I was born with. How are your holes? How do you make a shootout awkward?
Yeah.
Like, some of those lines between the two were brilliant. But then you've got this extended 5-minute scene with him beating the shit out of a fairy at the beginning. And I'm like, meh.
Actually, I kind of like the beating the shit out of
It was kind of funny, but it served only the purpose of him being, I'm a good guy, but I will beat the shit out of things if I have to, which wasn't necessary. You could have started the movie at the sword wielding guy in the road.
That would have been a much better starting point.
Everything else out before. You didn't need to see him get shot. They talk about it. Yeah. You didn't need to see the racism against the orcs. They talk about it ad nauseum. You don't need to talk about him not being blooded. Again, everything. And his wife and daughter were pawns. They were props. Women in this movie felt like they were 3 things: hostages, damsels, or villains. And all of them were boring.
Oh, I don't know. I really like the Inferni.
She was the most interesting, but not by much.
I like them because they were elves finally that kicked ass. Like, because in this movie, the elves are the social elite, so they're all these tall, elegant, beautiful people with eyes like vampires when they're feeding from underworld. And that's really all you see of the elves until you meet these 3 Inferni, who are badasses. I'm like, yes!
Basically, if we had called them vampires, there wouldn't have been a big difference, except that they didn't suck blood.
Yeah,
much.
That's it.
Yeah.
Much, yeah. That's it. They were basically underworld vampires.
I really liked. I'm wrong. They could have started the first 5-minute intro where they're panning over the city. That was really well done.
Oh yeah, with all the the street art of the troubles between orcs and anti-orc and elves and that kind of stuff. Also, Dark Lord. Yeah. Every time that came up, I'm like, Voldemort.
Oh, every time it came up, I was like, Sauron.
Or that too.
Because there was one point where someone had graffitied a giant eye.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was like,
There was one shot that made 0 sense to me, but cracked me up, and I loved it.
Just one?
No,
really?
it stood out because it was just like a shot of the city, and I'm like, okay, yeah, except in the corner,
dragon?
the dragon,
The dragon,
random dragon.
And I'm like, we're following cops But there are dragons in the skies of LA?
Yeah, I know. I read that must make air travel hellish. Like,
yeah, that's it.
Are they intelligent? Are they like mayors of the city? Why aren't they just burning these gangs?
Or also,
I like
are
to
they
think that
attacking
there's
airplanes?
a giant falconer who has to take care of the dragons. He's at the airport, like, and, like throws his. Yeah.
I like to think that they're like the Illuminati. Dragons just flying around and they're like, I mind control you all.
Oh, see, no, I was thinking more of Skyrim dragons.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, they're just gonna...
Random encounter. I kept expecting a random encounter for like a fantasy race. Like, ogres attacking, or trolls, or dragons.
There was that one centaur who was being a guard. I'm like, oh, look, a centaur! And then you see him one other time and that's it.
The movie tries a big scope, but then focuses really detailed into it. But they keep world building things out, like the 8 races got together to fight the Dark Lord. 9 races?
9 races.
What were the 9 races? You mentioned dwarves throughout the whole thing. Yeah. Where are the dwarves?
I mean, they had to be cut out for time constraints. It was already a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
But they could have, instead of having the like really awkward stereotype of Spanish gangs and cripples, they could have just used dwarves.
I mean, yeah. Actually, dwarf gangs would have been hilarious.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it would have played the humor better.
Hostile, yeah.
And they could have avoided that whole...
Yeah, it would have done very well with the orcs and dwarves gang fight.
And it would have been really good to avoid that whole trope of, I'm in a wheelchair, therefore I must destroy everything to be healed. Like, oh, come on. Not every person who has a disability lives in horror and terror that they have to be magically cured. Give it up, Hollywood.
So, here's how you watch this movie. Because it's easy to hate on.
Turn your brain off.
Go out, spend all day exercising. Go skiing, go snowshoeing, go do whatever you want. Go to the gym for 5 hours. Don't care. Then, go home when you're tired. Get into your PJs. Get nice and warm, get under a blanket, take a big bowl of popcorn, and start the film. And whatever happens, you're just going to be like, sure, okay, I'm in.
Put the kids to bed. I was very glad my daughter's too young to repeat words, because there were some words repeated over and over again that I was like, ooh, because there isn't a big, this is an R-rated movie at the beginning. It's just the usual, may contain sexual and blah, 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 and violence. And I'm like, oh. Fucking fairies, fuck. What am I watching? A live stream of Sonia? Like,
I might swear a lot when I'm streaming. Yes. That's probably why I didn't pick up on it, actually.
Yeah. Sometimes it also felt forced.
Yeah.
A fuck should never feel forced.
Well, there's a lot of commentary in that.
Take that in every way possible.
Consent is important, kids. There were a few lines that I really loved, like when Rodriguez says, Mexicans still don't look at me, man, Mexicans still get shit for the Alamo. I cracked up.
There was some amazing buddy cop dialogue in this.
Yeah.
Well, Will Smith being Will Smith. Every time Will Smith sassed, I'm like, yeah, cut that check, Will.
Yeah.
Every time he sassed, I was awesome. Every time he angsted, I was like,
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Pretty much up until the shootout, he annoyed me.
Oh, yeah?
And at the shootout with the other cops, I was like, alright, this is getting started.
That shootout with the other cops was beautifully filmed. The music choice over the top was a little jarring. It took me right out of it.
I was watching it with closed captioning on.
Oh, so you didn't have the sound up?
I did have it up enough that I could see, but with a child screaming, it's nice to be able to see. And it was saying the words, and at one point it said, "This is how the British do it." And there's this, like, LA scene, and I'm like, whoa.
I totally missed that, but I want to go back and see it now.
It was either like the Brits or the British, and it's like this big British rap gangster song, and I'm like, what?
I had not thought of closed captioning the rap song.
Completely put it in silence. But every song in that movie was closed captioned. It was beautiful, but weird.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. Now I want to go back and watch it on closed caption. There's
another thing that made me sort of raise my eyebrows, but that's only because it, like, the internal affairs officers are comedically racist, like over the top, ridiculously racist. if politics was not where it is right now, I would have rolled my eyes so hard. I started to roll my eyes and then went, well, actually.
Yeah.
They were also, I would say, comic booky, but comic books have actually improved.
Yeah.
Past this, they were
very 80s tropish.
They were SNL when SNL was making fun of X-Files while it was airing.
Yeah.
That's how bad they were. We are secret agents. Stupid orcs. It's like, dude, how wooden can you be?
The elf who was chasing after
the Inferni
the
girl?
Inferni.
The actual villain of the movie-ish, if you don't consider Society the villain.
Well, he wasn't.
He.
They posted him up to be villain-ish just because of the way he was
the FBI
played.
guy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The FBI Magic Division guy. I was expecting him to be villainous, but in the end, he turned out to be.
I kind of expected him to be like the warehouse in Indiana Jones, kind of terrifying at a distance, but not doing much.
Well, I mean, he didn't do much.
He didn't do much. Right, and this is, like I say, where if you start to dig into this movie, there's a lot of flaws. And one of the things I have a problem with is when people, like, they're fighting the cops, and the three elves are just mowing through them, and it is not a problem. And somebody looks over there and throws a knife to kill another one. The other one's backing them up. And then when you get into Will Smith fight, like, it's okay. Suddenly their skill level goes way down.
Well,
like,
no, it's okay. Will Smith is the chosen one. He
he's
is the
blessed.
poor boy. He's the poor farm boy.
Well, yes, but
He's the
that
poor
doesn't
farm
mean
boy.
he gets an upgrade in fighting skills all of a
There were
sudden.
two. His orc partner was also the poor farm boy.
Yeah, they were basically both the Frodo trope.
Yeah.
Only with more personality. I'd say the Luke trope, but with more personality, but it comes out to the same thing.
I love the color palette of this film.
Yes.
But it jarred with the mood of the film. So the mood was sometimes, humorous and buddy copish, but the color palette of the film was like gritty
Cops.
drama. Like, it didn't quite jive, and honestly, if they had gone darker with this film and kept that palette, I think I might have liked it, or if they'd lightened up the palette.
Yeah, the movie needed to go, it was too centered. It needed to go buddy cop, or go
Like
actual hardcore
gritty,
crime.
gritty dark crime.
Yeah.
Like, I
agree
was
with
waiting for, after, like, the fairy being killed and the gore and stuff earlier, I was just waiting for one of those elves to, like, grab someone's heart, squeeze it, and then throw them off, rip someone in half, like, real gore.
Yeah.
I'm not someone who usually says this, but
I am.
go darker or go lighter. Don't go middle ground.
Yeah. So the palette of the film, the beautiful shots, like the whole...
Oh, it's a gorgeously shot film,
Yeah.
and I think that...
But it jarred.
Yeah, well, it's...
I think I know why. And maybe it's because of my background. I mostly read urban fantasy, and I really love cop stuff. I think it's because they were condescending to the audience a little. Because this isn't a genre of movie that is seen often.
Yeah.
You do not see modern fantasy done often. So they were making sure that everybody knew what was going on. There were orcs. This timeline is different. Yes, it's our Earth, but nobody's surprised to see fairies eating bird seed, which make no sense considering their
I
teeth.
want to know if there was racism between all the races. Is there sub-racism between the Russian orcs that were getting killed by the guy there and the LA orcs? Like, do they hate each other too? Is there is there a spot they all came from? Yeah, like that's it. Like, did they all...
Dark green, light green, yeah. Because there was black and white racism, and like humans were racist with each other.
Yeah.
But were the other races racist with each other?
Except for the elves, of course, who are just racist against everyone else.
Including themselves.
And rich. So
and rich, so they could get away with it.
Yeah, that's it. You
never
can't...
explained why were they... Was it like something specific that they were rich for?
No, I
Or just
sort of get
'cause
the
they were-
idea that it's making fun of the whole fantasy trope where elves are these wonderful, majestic, sort of
They're the ones who own cities.
semi-angelic people. So naturally they would be on the top of the world order as it is today. Yeah, so I think it was just making fun of that sort of idea of what elves are. But which is why I liked the Inferni so much, because they were not these... I mean, they were gorgeous. They were still elegant and beautiful.
But they weren't the do-gooder elves of typical fantasy.
But, exactly that. They were nasty. There were awful people, but they were badass too. Because I would imagine that in almost all fantasy books that I've read that contain elves, all the derivatives of Tolkien you could possibly imagine, the elves were also warriors. You don't see that of the elves in this world unless they're Inferni.
Yeah.
Which I liked.
You don't really see most of the races be warriors because it's modern day, except for the gangs.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And the death cults like the Inferni, or what were the humans called? The
Shield of Light.
Shield of Light.
Yes.
Which
But
were
hang on,
kind of useless.
Okay, that's another thing. There were so many questions left by this movie. Okay, so the
Oh,
army...
don't get into that because there's a million
No,
questions.
but I
go
need
ahead.
to know this, the lore. The army of 9 races included the Shield of Light, because they were the ones who stopped the Dark Lord. But then, right at the end of the movie, the Orcish cop... what was his name?
It doesn't matter. He's
Doesn't
Orc
matter.
Cop.
Orc cop.
I don't remember any names in this except...
Yeah.
No, I don't remember any names in this.
I know.
Yeah, I can't tell you. It was Will Smith and Orc Cop and Elf Girl. That's all I know about them.
Tika, Ward, and I forget the orc's name. Or even because Will Smith's character called him a different name too, like Keith or Kevin or something like that. Anyway,
Luke, Frodo, baggage.
So he talks about an unblooded orc who was just this poor farmer who became blooded fighting the Dark Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he gathered the army of 9 races. But the orcs are the lowest caste of society because they fought on behalf of the Dark Lord. So what? What? Movie, what?
Well, most likely there was one cast of orcs that helped.
I guess.
And that organized,
But
Don't worry about that. Put your brain in park. Watch the gunfights. It doesn't matter. Yeah, sure, there's an army of 9 races. Great, cool. Oh, he's a holy boy. He can come back from the dead. Sure, I'm in. That's not more ridiculous than anything else I've seen in this movie.
The storyline didn't match, and if the storyline doesn't run, then I can't concentrate on anything else.
But it did work because the orcs as a giant group, it's sort of like if Poland decided during World War II, which was Nazi controlled, split off to try to fight off the Nazis again. You know what I mean? It's like one part of the army went, oh shit, we're on the wrong side. Let's fight this guy. That's what I'm assuming.
I mean, sort of, but then not all orcs would be the lowest caste, right? At least the descendants of this farmer dude.
It's been 2,000 years.
There might be a bigger cast of orc. Like, remember he was the orc gang leader was talking about how in Chicago everybody gets to get along, and which is really funny if you know anything about the history. Oh, wasn't Chicago?
It was me.
Yeah, it was Miami.
Oh, okay, that's better then. Darn it. I thought it was Chicago.
No.
That would have been funny. Anyway, Miami, where they all get along and have parties.
Yeah.
But, so maybe there is, like,
well,
somewhere in Canada, there's this, like, orc family that is in charge. They're like the Trudeaus of that world.
Well, I like that his way of enforcing the no-gun rule was to mercilessly kill people with
a
guns.
gun. Yeah.
That's, you know.
Also, Orc Kid Ex Machina.
Oh, yeah.
Also...
that was so tropey.
Oh, wasn't it?
Yeah. It made me think of Zootopia.
I haven't
Except
watched it.
Zootopia did it better.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Or, you know, he comes back from the dead. Or he happens to be the one in the million. You can't watch this movie
I
and
can
look
and
at
I
it.
will. Damn it. That's the whole point of this panel.
That's just... I can't look at movies and not think critically about them.
I guess I cannot think critically about things.
There's a lot of knots there, and I got sort of tied up. Since this is literally the genre I write and read in the most, there were a lot of weird twists and turns, and I feel like it was written by one group of people, then maybe a studio or someone went, maybe that's a little bit too obscure, and then had them rewrite it. But some artifacts from the original story stayed in.
There was a lot of exposition that didn't really need to be in there. There was a lot of repeating of things we already know. Would you shut up about it already? That didn't need to be in there.
Did you know Ward was shot?
He doesn't like his partner because he thinks his partner's a liar.
Yes.
Also, he's racist and his partner's an orc.
Oh, yes.
But he's not really racist.
He's not
because
really
he stands
racist.
up for him.
Yeah,
okay.
but he's hard to work with because nobody else wants to be in Ward's car. So
He's racist, but not as racist as his wife or his daughter or his friends or his partners
Well, his daughter sort of
or
flip-flops,
society.
right?
Well, yeah, I mean, when
You
your
can't
mother's
talk
racist...
to him like that. Orcs are people too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, she was trying to emulate her father, who wasn't racist.
The scene where
was.
they meet Tika, the elf girl, when she's running out of the building, it cracks me up. She grabs the handlebars and does a flip as she exits the door, but there's just ground there. It would have been a lot faster for her to just keep running. Why the flip? It reminds me of in
MacGyver?
the Golden Child. When the bad guy's character's got a crossbow and he's aiming it, so the heroine does like 500 backflips to get to him, to meet the crossbow bolt so that it wouldn't hit Eddie Murphy's character. And you're like, why?
Yeah, it's like MacGyver trying to go over this little hedge that he could have walked over. He rolls.
Yeah, he rolls. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
I mean, I get
Also,
you.
what was with that art installation piece that she turned the girl into?
I thought that was really.
It was
cool.
pretty, but why?
Why not?
What I mean, every other time that she blasts someone with the wand,
they get
disintegrate,
vaporized?
they get vaporized.
They
But
turn
this
into-
person turns into like the sci-fi AI engine of a ship.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, visually it was beautiful.
it was
So
pretty
I'm
cool.
not so worried about that. But I mean, if
It
I
just
had,
threw me off because I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
Magic has weird
something-
abilities in this movie. There's
Well, no, magic can do anything. The wands they explain literally can do absolutely anything.
so why aren't you trying to harness that power more? Like
Because
yeah,
only
instead
like,
of exterminating the brights, I don't know, put them to good use.
yeah, exactly. Like, hey,
has that really ever been human nature? Like, oh my god, that person's amazing at killing things. Let's kill them first.
but in this case, like, hey, we have a food shortage in name country X. Hey, could you just wish up some potatoes? Diddle-a-doo-doo-doo. Potatoes. Oh, is there a water shortage in California? Diddle-a-doo-doo-doo. Oh.
I am sure there's a sequel or another part of this movie where they're going to have a bunch of kids in a school. They're all brights. They're being, like, mind controlled into becoming government tools.
You don't even need to mind control them. You could just be like, show up, do your job. Here's $1 million. Everybody in Colorado has
what
water
this
now.
movie would do.
Great.
Yeah, with a lot, not just magic, but with the fantasy race abilities that they already show. Like, oh, we don't want an orc on the cop force. He can smell a different person from 500 feet and tell you what the difference between cow and human shit is that's been put down 6 days before, but we don't want him anywhere near anyone.
Yeah.
And why are orcs the only ones? Like, why are there no supervisor elves or...
I mean, because they all have like the hoity-toity jobs, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that
Wouldn't
like
one
the
be the
chief of
commissioner?
chiefs, the chief of chiefs of the police departments
Yeah.
everywhere in the
that's it.
states, probably headed by an elf.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you imagine trying to make social change in that order, though? Like, we have problems now where there's people who are like, hey, I was born at an age when, this was illegal. With the elves, like, I live 1,000 years. It's like, oh, this voting block is going to take a long time to weed out. Like, Jesus.
No wonder they're still in power.
Yeah, exactly. No wonder
Like,
they're still in power.
Could you imagine the evangelical elf movement or something? Like, we're going to only vote this way for the next 300 years. 1,000 years. Like, our cause is over.
It's also really hard for a movie to be completely pushing an anti-racist agenda and then being like, yeah, but they are very different. So, like, elves aren't better than anybody else, except they're prettier, they're richer, they're more intelligent, they're more likely to be magical, they're stronger, they can jump more. But they're not better than anybody else.
Yeah.
It's like, okay. The orcs aren't worse than anybody else, except that they're all violent.
and-
They have tusks. They can smell things that's just weird. They can't jump. Like, okay, yeah, I see that you're trying to push an anti-racist thing, but you're also pushing.
But that's a
the-
problem
the-
with any fantasy.
Yeah, any
group that
fantasy.
uses
Yeah, I know,
race
but it's still
as-
pushing the agenda that right now white nationalists in the States are like, well, black people are they're not that smart,
Yeah.
which I think is the stupidest thing ever. Anyway.
Yeah, I do like the orcs as a proxy for people of color.
Yeah.
But their major sort of artistic outlet is pulled from punk and metal, which I like because normally it's rap, right? If you're
Oh man, I wish he had kept playing the orcish music.
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to hear more of it.
Yeah.
this was the greatest love song ever written. That made me laugh. Yeah.
And you know what? A great love song from this time period, you give it to someone from 200 years ago, they'd be like,
Yeah. They did what before they were married? Oh,
well, just the
bull
music.
feathers.
Well, you know what? Sometimes I do that too. Well,
it's just the music itself, like heavy metal
Shape
guitar.
of You?
Oh, Shape of You.
I'm like, I'm in love with your body. I'm like, well, what about the rest of me?
Yeah.
Can you be in love with my mind too? Because that's really more important. I mean, just saying.
Not if you're Ed Sheeran.
Not if you're Ed Sheeran. I guess not.
Not if you want to sell a gazillion records to teenagers.
Fucking. Ugh. Anyway.
Although he does have some songs where he talks about the personality.
I mean, no, he's a brilliant songwriter. He really is.
But
It's just that particular song. I'm like, really?
Yeah, the new Taylor Swift album has the same issue.
Sure.
You're so pretty. I love you because you're pretty. And I'm like, okay.
I do love Taylor because she's pretty. Wait, what? Was this Taylor that we're dying? Oh,
Maybe that's it. She was singing to herself.
recorded in Taylor Swift's bathroom every morning. That's a good tangent we wrote off on.
God damn.
That's something I would have liked to have seen more of is, like, I know that it was a down in the streets gritty meets epic fantasy, but I would have liked to see in the middle. Like, there was no pop culture, there was no news really.
Oh, except for the expositional news.
Yeah. But there was no like, hey, let's make fun of Taylor Swift and have Elf Swift in the background singing, or let's make the back alley boys and they're like all orcs, or you know, just like
it would have been very fun to see.
Yeah, more of that. But again, I think they were trying to go too much for the gritty tone for some things.
Yeah,
and
well, and
not
I
for
think
the other
that
things.
they
it was a
needed
confused movie.
yes, it was.
Yeah, which is a shame.
And if you
And
watch this, you
still
know that
fun.
angers me.
You know, I know I mentioned about the color palette before, but if my book Human was ever turned into a film, that's the palette I would use for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Slightly greenish, bluish.
Yeah. Sorry, tangent. I was just thinking of that when they showed the picture of the church, like that gorgeous shot.
Yeah.
I'm like, that would really work for my book.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that his resurrection happened in the church. That was cute.
Yeah. I want to find out more about this Shield of Light group.
Absolutely.
Because we heard about the Inferno.
They have greenlit a sequel.
Oh yeah, I was going to say
because it's the most watched Netflix movie of all time.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it did amazingly well because it's good.
No, it did amazingly well because people watched it and some people were like, it's the most genius thing ever. Have you ever imagined combining fantasy and normal day life? That never happens. And the other group is like, this sucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So everyone's like, oh, I might as well try it out because everybody has Netflix.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking. Like, may as well try it out.
You know, that's it. Is it's being played on a service that you buy at the same price. You literally don't lose anything going in on this movie. You know, you walk in, sit down, enjoy it as a popcorn film. Yeah. It can be the same sort of guilty pleasure I have with watching this as I get when watching Pacific Rim. Like,
nope. Okay, I will argue Pacific Rim was way better than this.
Pacific Rim was way better, but it's the same sort of guilty pleasure. Like, none of these plans make sense. I'm good with it.
But again, the difference, in my opinion, Pacific Rim doesn't take itself seriously. And it has a coherent storyline.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, there are giant robots and giant monsters. Ignore that. Now follow the storyline. Well, this is sort of like, there are all kinds of races, and there's this, and there's a backstory, and there was a Dark Lord, and all this exciting stuff. Two racist people in a car.
Somebody left, my friend John left a comment when I posted on Facebook that I had watched this, that it felt a lot more like a pilot for a TV show.
Yeah.
And it would have worked so much better as a pilot for a TV show. I think if this was expanded into a TV show, and you could get those bits of lore all sorted out, it would have been so much better than the confused mess that this movie ended up.
I think Netflix is throwing enough money at things. This could be. You could get Will Smith in a series.
I'm expecting this to be a series of movies.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna be like Resident Evil, where it just keeps getting sillier and sillier.
I hope it gets
sillier and sillier and sillier
because
as
it
goes.
works as a silly thing. It doesn't work as the quasi-gritty thing they tried to make it.
And I think there are movies like Deadpool that prove you can still be silly and downright brutal at the same time.
Agreed.
And,
Okay.
Yeah.
So star rating and final thoughts, Eric?
2.5. There was some really fun dialogue, but it failed in being an urban fantasy. It failed in being a buddy cop. It failed at being a cop movie. And I really want to know what's up with that dragon.
Just the shot of the dragon still cracks me up. I can see it. And it
I
just,
actually paused and went, "There's a dragon?"
air travel must be horrendous. Martin?
So, this is definitely a 2.5-star movie. I loved it. I love bad movies. I've watched almost every bad movie that's out there. Hey, I enjoyed. Put your brain in park. Don't worry about any of the details. Just enjoy a gunfight and some silliness. And yeah, sure, that's not the worst logical leap I've had to make in watching this whole film. I'm in. This...
2.5 for me too. This movie was confused. It had so much potential. The premise is brilliant. It's a really good idea, but the execution was sorely lacking. It did have some really beautiful, bright moments. Will Smith and his sass. It's Will Smith being Will Smith was, I mean, that's why you would watch a Will Smith movie. So yeah, 2.5 stars all round, I guess.
Dear Netflix, 2 things. Add more well-rounded women characters in the next one, and maybe contact Shannon Maguire or Laura Resnick or Jim Butcher.
I'll totally play an elf.
Me too. I'll play any role you want. I'll be an orc.
I'll help you write it.
Yeah.
Who wants to pick the next one?
Go ahead, Martin.
It is Hook, 1991.
Oh, this is one of my favorite movies for kids. Yay.
Yeah.
Hook. Okay.
Rufio.
So the next film that we're going to review is Hook, 1991. If you have any thoughts about Bright, do leave them in the comments down below. I really want to see a fight between those who loved it and those who didn't. It would be super interesting. And if you have any suggestions for other films, you can leave those in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much, guys. Bye!
Adios.
The Alamo.